about myself. I'm not talking about you, so I don't know who wrote that. So if you think you can attain enlightenment in this life, of course, but I'm pretty realistic, you know. I know what enlightenment is because I've been going into that direction since, 30 years now. I see how slow the process is. I see that my practice is slackening. It's not so strong anymore also. I see that I'm involved with a lot of kind of worldly and daily things because I'm also looking after the Century and Burn, kind of, I have a title of acting co-director. So don't have so much time anymore. And yeah, so for me, I know enlightenment in this lifetime. But I'm happy with what I'm doing. This is where you stand, I don't know. Yeah. So in general, it's kind of think very big when you start. Like only the best is good for me means full enlightenment, not just the precious human rebirth. Of course, I also need it. But for what? Because I want to attain liberation, and even there, I want to go further to full enlightenment. Okay? Think very big. Look very far ahead, knowing that it will last a long time. You know, they talk about 3.5 countless eons after you have entered the path. Now that can sound very discouraging, because I haven't properly entered the path yet. Now, when do you enter the Buddhist path? Of the 5 paths? When do you enter the path of accumulation? The Mahayana path with bodhicitta, but
renunciation.
Huh?
Renunciation.
Renunciation. Meaning you are behaving in this world as if this world is a toilet that you're being locked in. All you're interested in is getting out. I'm not like this. Still kind of like beautiful things, thinking that the beauty is out there, you know, instinctively. So then from then on, when you have, and this is it, when you have developed bodhicitta, the Mahayana path, you know, the Theravadan path is quicker, they say 7 lifetimes or something. You know, once you have developed spontaneous renunciation. See, you would have spontaneous renunciation because it happened to somebody at one point. She was locked in the toilet. Chaya was locked in the toilet next to the office there, and she couldn't get out. Do you think she was looking around thinking, what is nice in here? What can I enjoy? This is what we do with our life. What can I enjoy here? What can I make better, nicer? She was only interested in getting out. This is called renunciation of samsara, of this contaminated body and mind, wanting to get out of it. What keeps me here? And how can I get out? It would be good if it happens to you at one point, being locked into a toilet. You will see you have absolutely no interest in making this toilet more beautiful, so that it becomes a bit more pleasant. But that's what we do with our life in general. We make it, you know, we beautify it. It stinks, then we spray. We put new paint from time to time, change partners, change houses, change jobs, change spiritual practice also, yeah? So we change all kinds of things in order to make it better, but it doesn't help. If you have a very discontented mind, even you change your house and your job and your partner, you take that discontent mind with you, and it will not be long until you're discontent about your new partner, and about your new wife, and about your new job or whatever. Yeah? This is it. So it's kind of internal practice, not so much outside.
It sounds like a contradiction, like wanting to get out of this samsara and out of the toilet instead of, like, it sounds like a contradiction to, it's like someone who just wants to die. And
dying is not getting you out of samsara. Doesn't finish the whole thing, unfortunately. That's it. No, dying is not the solution. The solution is to recognize your wrong views, because you're going to be reborn. This is what Buddhism says. Yeah. And why do you want, like, there's different samsaras. You have it in your booklet also. We didn't talk about this. So it's page 2. Finishing samsara means then you get into what is called nirvana, peace. It's not in the red booklet, it's in the other booklet. The kind of cream one. Can you have a bit more distinct color next time so I can say what color it is? The very pale pink one. So, if you look at the four nirvanas, yeah. So we have samsara, samsara is having a body and a mind who is afflicted, whether we want or not, by stress, frustration, pain, lamentation, despair, and the whole packet. Yeah? Death, birth, sickness, old age. Not having what we want, having what we don't want, losing things that we are attached to. We come to that tomorrow. I can give you the whole list what samsara is. Being exposed to that, whether we want or not, whether we're poor or rich, everybody is exposed to birth, old age, sickness, and death until you die young. And it's not satisfactory. Yeah? So that is samsara. And samsara is like taking on every round this contaminated five aggregates, or this contaminated or afflicted body and mind who is in the nature of suffering. Who at one point, sooner or later, you will have stress and frustration. Now, everybody has what is called natural nirvana, which is our Buddha nature. It's the clarity of the mind. Okay? That everybody has. It's not developed for us. Then there is nirvana with remainder. That means it's your last life in this contaminated body. At the time of birth, you had just a few things to get rid of, but still, the body is still afflicted somehow, so you will still die. The remainder is this body, this form that dies. Yeah? But your mind is already free of any afflictions. And that is called nirvana with remainder. That means that will be your last life if you are on the Theravadan path. That is on the path where you seek for self-liberation. The founder vehicle, sometimes called Hinayana, sometimes called Theravada. Yeah? So then you have, the next one is nirvana without remainder. That means you die, so that afflicted body that still gets sick and dies, gets burned or whatever, and your mind goes into what is called peace. So when people ask what is it, then it said it's beyond concept, so we can't even talk about this. Free from all afflictions, free from all negative emotions. And your what is called an arhat, yeah, foe destroyer. You have destroyed all the hindrances for liberation, which is our delusions. But then you have what is called non-abiding nirvana. This is if you are in the Mayana vehicle, you would not go into that eternal peace, but you would continue to work on your mind so that you can manifest again and again and again and again. With the mind, that is okay. Yeah? Mind, that is totally okay, but you take on human bodies, for example, because people can make contact with you, and then you, for those who want, you would be able to lead them to full awakening. So that is the only guide that is really perfect. Somebody who knows the way. Yeah? Somebody who has done this way. Or if you look at the doctor, a perfect doctor would be somebody who had the same sickness as you, who found a cure, cured himself, and now is able to teach that cure. That would be a perfect doctor. Yeah? Because knows it out of experience. So that is what is called non-abiding nirvana. So these beings, they make a promise, as long as space remains, as long as sentient beings endure, for that long shall I also come back or remain in order to alleviate their suffering. So you will have work for a long time. No need to worry that you will feel bored as a bodhisattva. So that's the bodhisattva vehicle. Yeah. But death, unfortunately, is not the solution in Buddhism. Many people think that death is a solution and they kind of commit suicide. Now,
Surprise, surprise.
What?
After they commit suicide.
Yeah, so we don't know. I don't know if there's rebirth or not. I've had past life experiences which can be total fantasy, that's true, but it really explained quite a lot of things why I behave like this in this life. So for me it was very helpful. Whether it's true or not, doesn't really matter. Main thing is that itself, and it felt pretty real. Other people kind of remember their past lives and all this, but I don't know. I believe in it. I always believed in it, even as a child. So I told you I grew up with totally non-spiritual or religious parents. They thought I was a bit loopy, kind of believing in rebirth. I didn't learn it from anybody around me. Nobody believed in rebirth. But for me, it was like, yeah, there is rebirth. I didn't think that there is like infinite rebirth. That in fact also came a bit as a surprise, because I never kind of even thought of it, how many times I had been reborn already. But it seemed to make sense, so I had absolutely no problem with that. So like this. So yeah, one gets reborn in Buddhism. But I don't know if it's true. So it's a hypothesis. So and this is what you will do tomorrow in your discussion groups, you will check, is that view, in what way will that view help me to kind of lead a meaningful life? Is it beneficial or is it not beneficial? Will you find it not beneficial, you leave it. So, it's 50-50 chance that it's yes or no, we don't know. You can't really say that there's no rebirth because just you don't remember. Otherwise you would have to say, I wasn't born because I don't remember my birth. How many of you remember your birth?
Someone else remembers. You can even video it.
Okay, but that can be fake. Yeah, this is how we know most things. Depending on pictures or depending on the opinion of somebody else, then it becomes true. This whole thing about exchanging babies in the hospital. You're totally sure that you were born that day and this is your mother and this is your father. Who knows? Maybe you were exchanged. Do you know the book Midnight Children by Salman Rushdie? The nurse who thought, oh, this is not fair. So she exchanged the beggar baby with the rich person, with the rich parents' baby. Then you see the stories how those two develop. Okay, I hope you're not going home and looking at your mom. Are you really my mother? Or if you have children that you look at them and you go, are they really my children? I hope not.
Can I ask a question about the answer?
About what?
Just the subject you were.
Yeah.
Just I was wondering if one can notice when he is out of the cyclic existence in this life.
If you can notice it.
Like, for example, if you go through this middle goal enlightenment, do you know that you're not?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I think I would know when the defilements are finished.
I see.
Not just I think, yes, you would know, definitely, because that's what you're working for. You cannot fall into liberation without working towards it. Yeah, it's impossible. So you will know. Yeah, you will know when everything starts to fall apart. Yeah, first it falls apart in your meditation. In your meditation, when you meditate on emptiness, that nothing appears anymore. Yeah, you're looking for the inherently existing watch, and you can't find it, and you analyze it to death, and it's not in the parts, it's not separate from the parts, not here, it's not there, and then you kind of meditate on that absence of something that you thought was there. Then nothing appears. This is also why it's called ultimate truth, because there, what appears is how it exists, empty. But then when you come out of your meditation, it still appears as inherently existing. Then when you're fully enlightened, they say, you see ultimate truth and conventional truth simultaneously at the same moment. I have no clue what that will be, but I'm sure it will be different from what I see now. Just imagine having absolutely no more self-concern. having absolutely no more doubts, no more fears, no more moments of being absent, no more anger, no more jealousy, no more arrogance. We all know how that feels. We all know what that is. Anger, fear, depression, jealousy, and we all know what it is. You know, so imagine being totally free and really knowing that things are impermanent and things are empty. And there's no separate I. So again, how it will feel, I have no clue. But I know, yes, I think one knows when one is there. Or did you think like you don't know and then you just continue with your practice until somebody comes and says, wait, maybe you should check, maybe you're enlightened. Maybe you're liberated. I don't think so. Yeah. At the moment I know that I'm not. Just looking at my reactions sometimes to certain things. Okay? Okay, so here's a question about karma, and this we do tomorrow. And now, if it's okay for you, we are going to train or to make the mind familiar with what happens at the time of death. So it's page 14 in your booklet. This is a chart. Now again, you know, the first question is always, where do these teachings come from? Well, they're tantric teachings, and it comes from beings who are very realized and who can go through this process consciously. But what is kind of striking a bit is that when you are with dying people, that very often they describe these experiences. Yeah, so it has some things, also it makes sense. The internal signs also make sense because one element absorbs into the other. So what dies is not the mind, but the body. But what also dies is our gross mind, like a gross level mind. We have, the mind exists, or you can have the mind at 3 different levels. One is the gross level where the mind is depending on sense experience in order to figure things out. And that mind is quite gross. It doesn't understand so much. Yeah? Like I said, it sees shape and color, and it hears sounds, and it recognizes sounds, and these kind of things. But then there's a more subtle mind who has also experiences, which is the dreaming mind, where it is maybe also influenced by the sensorial mind, by having memories who were created before. But in order to have the experiences, you do not need the direct object there. Yeah? Because the mind is more subtle. And then you have, so that's a dreaming mind. And then you have the very subtle mind, which is the clarity, or, you know, as one was asking, the awareness, the fact of knowing. Yeah. So that is the very subtle mind. So at the time of death, also these gross minds who are depending, who can perceive outside objects, they also lose their power. And it goes into a more subtle mind, and then from that subtle mind to the very subtle mind, one loses concepts. The mental activities go. Concepts that come from attachment, aversion, or ignorance. Also, there was a question like, what is wrong views? But I did answer that already, so whoever asked that question, it just, probably me, I put it back there, I don't know. You know. So I hope that's clear, the wrong views. Okay, so because the mind at the time of death kind of is not able to hold these illusory appearances anymore, and also is not able to hold the afflictive emotions anymore, because it just absorbs into something much more subtle, then there is a moment of what is called of clear light at the moment of death. And this is when the mind, when you are in contact with your clear nature mind. The problem is there's no more split of I am in my clear nature mind. This is why we can't remember it, most probably. But sometimes when you wake up in the start like this, or sometimes in the morning also, it takes a while until you're back here. Yeah? I always, when I wake up, the first moment is always very tight in here. Yeah, almost like fear, something. And then I need to do some breathing, and then it comes back. But I definitely feel that I come from a place that was much nicer than lying in this bed. And I want to go back there because that is our nature. So at the time of death, this happens naturally. The mind naturally goes into that clear light mind. This is why also people who have near-death experiences, they sometimes describe this moment and they say, wow, there I was there, I understood something, I don't know what it was, but it was really beautiful and I didn't want to come back. Yeah. Especially when it's people who have like bad injuries, because all the pain goes when the mind is not connected to the body anymore. So kind of the pain goes, but when they bring you back from this state of total freedom and total absence of pain, you come back to this painful body. Somebody said it was like torture. Yeah. So this is so this is what is happening. So our body is made up of 4, 5 elements. Like if you take space also into consideration, you have 5 elements. And so each of those kind of absorbs or loses their power because they each have a function. Yeah, like the earth element is supporting or obstructing. The water element is moistening or cohesive also so that it kind of doesn't fall apart. Like earth, when the earth is very dry, it falls apart. And then we have the fire element, which kind of helps us to digest. We have body heat that we need in order to be alive and to digest. And then you have air element, which of course the breath, and also allows movement. So each of those loses the function. And each of those is connected to a sense organ. Also, that also loses its function. Okay, so if you look at page 14, the first factor or the first element that loses its power is the earth element. So it feels as if the body kind of is shrinking when you're dying. Yeah? Sometimes you can actually see it. Sometimes it looks as if dying people are shrinking. Not that much, but a little bit perceivable if you are looking. You feel as if your limbs are loose and you lose control over them. Like you cannot move them anymore. And since the earth element loses its power, you have an illusion of falling into a bottomless pit. And by the way, when we go to sleep, the same thing happens. And many people are aware of that sometimes when you have been asleep, maybe an hour or so, and all of a sudden it's like you feel as if you're falling into a bottomless pit. And I see also here many people nodding. And what happens then? You go like, oh great, the earth element is dissolving. I can fly. I cannot crash on the ground. Yoo-hoo, finally free. Do we react like this? No. How do we react? Frightened. Because why? Because we are so not used. We are so used that this earth is supporting us. So I don't know how many of you have been in an earthquake. Nobody? You have been?
Small one.
Small one.
Small.
So what happens when you have a small earthquake also? You think, oh great, the earth is moving. Woohoo! It's like roller coaster for free. That was in Nepal. They said it was like a roller coaster. The earth went like this, not just shaking. It went
It's
like
not a
this.
small one.
Huh?
It's not a small one.
No, that was a big one. That was a big. She couldn't get down the stairs. She was on the first floor. The one who told me. And it was like that. So I was also in small ones in Dharamsala, but it's very upsetting. For 2 or 3 days you feel totally besides your shoes. Because that thing that you trusted so much that is not going to moved. It really, really shakes you up. Yeah? It really puts you really upside down. So, so knowing that this will happen, this kind of falling, you might have the awareness at the time of death to relax and say, yes, this is normal, and to kind of be totally calm. It helps people who describe it. When people when you are with dying people, and they are describing it, it helps by just saying, yes, okay, relax, it's normal. Don't say, no, you're not falling, you're lying on your bed, because they feel like falling. And very often they grab onto something. They want to hold on to something. Yeah? Because they have this feeling of falling. And the moment you can tell them, yeah, it's normal, and look, next sign will be like this. And then they start again. They are aware. They're out of the fear, but then they start to look, maybe. Yeah? And again, it didn't happen to me, but her brother died, and he was kind of, je tombe. And she just said, because she had learned about these things, so very naturally she said, yeah, don't worry, it's normal. He closed his eyes, calmed down, and died. Stopped breathing. It's amazing how you can calm people down when you say, yes, it's normal. It's amazing how calming that kind of sentence is. Yes, I know, but it's normal. So we have to become aware of it. So it's the aggregate of form. With the wisdoms there, don't worry about those. This also needs a lot of explanation. When the earth element loses its power, also the eye sense kind of loses its power. So the sight becomes very blurry. Even though the eyes are open, you can't see anymore because the eye consciousness kind of retracts, goes back. And this you can see sometimes with children also. They sleep, their eyes open. So when you go to sleep, the eye sense, eye consciousness absorbs, and you can go like this, but they don't see anything. Yeah? But what appears is something like a mirage, like a Fata Morgana. You're lucky, in Europe I have to ask, how many of you have seen a Fata Morgana? Almost nobody. Here, how many of you are in the desert, you go to the Sinai, how many of you have seen Fata Morganas? That's all? Oh, I thought everybody would go, yeah, of course, I have seen Fata Morgana. Irit, how does it look? Does it look like real water?
Yes.
Totally.
Yes.
Totally like real water. If you would be thirsty and you don't know that this is just a mirage, you would run. You would run towards that water. If you had no water with you and you see the water and you're terribly thirsty, you would go there. It's so real. It's really amazing. Yeah. So this is what appears.
Even though we were aware of the fact that it might be a mirage, we went to check.
Really?
Yeah.
And what
To
happened?
check, maybe it's water.
Yeah. And then it was what?
It wasn't water.
Okay. This is coming away from this. This is how sometimes also the path, the practice of the path, how to practice path is explained by the view, the meditation, and then the action. So the view is that everything that seems real is just a mirage. It appears like totally real, like water, but it's not. So as long as we keep running towards the thing and believing that it's real, we create karmic imprints, tendencies of going again and going again and going again. Yeah. So the meditation on it is, no, I've been going so many times, it was never water, I will stop being attached to these things, or averse. I will not react like this anymore. And then the action is that you can leave them alone. Right? You see the mirage, it appears like a mirage, it appears like water, but there's no water there. So you go, oh, look, it looks like water over there, but there's no reaction towards it. You're not running towards it. So this is also sometimes how the path is explained. You get the view that nothing exists from its own side, really. You meditate on it, you make your mind familiar with this, and then the action, like seeing it, knowing it's just an illusion, or like an illusion, and then not reacting. Then reacting to it as to an illusion. In your dream, when you know you're dreaming, you would still react. So, you're not just standing there and let life go by. Oh, it's all just like an illusion, I don't need to do anything. You still react in your dream. But knowing that you're dreaming, you react totally differently. Also, the compassion of a Buddha who knows that suffering has causes, therefore it can be stopped, is totally different from our compassion seeing the suffering of somebody, because we don't know that actually these people are just projecting the suffering. So the compassion is of a Buddha